There is the Perez Hiltons of the world. There is the Jeffree Stars, who is a very disgusting person overall, but definitely hates women. Okay. There are other gays like Kanye West. Let me stop. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Freedom Collective podcast. Collective, per usual. This is like amazing. I'm just so blown away and thankful for anybody who's listening and joining me on this journey. Wow. Please don't forget to leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to the YouTube, yay. Please. Thank you for listening. This is gonna be another episode that I know it's gonna be some feathers ruffled, and I'm sure it's gonna be a lot of people agreeing. I'm sure. I think so. But before we get into the main topic, my cat just scuttered in a bit. My cat has been she's been on one, y'all. She's in the background. If you didn't see her, you'll see her on the YouTube video. I don't know if I can add her out. But hello. Before we get into the topic of the day, let's do our intake question first. In segment one, intake. And today's question, feel free to answer below, answer in the comment section, throw it wherever you need to throw it. But it's who inspires you most? And before I came up with this question, I was reflecting. I was like, who's inspiring me right now? Like a whole lot. And you know who came to mind? And don't ever tell them I said this, but my sisters. I have been like, I've always kind of been close to my sisters, and then I've had periods of time where I haven't been. But I've been getting recently closer to my sisters, like, and it's so funny how that ebbs and flow as you go through life. But my sisters are like super moms. Like, I think all of them are really great moms. Like, despite all of the things that we've endured and some of the not so great parenting choices that we've experienced, they are like really, 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 really amazing moms. And I don't know, I find that to be inspiring. They make me want to keep going and doing great things. They make me excited to be a parent someday soon. And yeah, I love my sisters and I want to know who inspires you. And it's okay if it's someone who you don't know. Just tell me who inspires you. That's who's inspiring me right now. I would never tell them that though, because they get on my last and first and second nerve. Okay. With that being said, that was a short intake segment because we gonna get into the nitty gritty, y'all. We gonna break it down so it could forever be broke. For today's segment, the journey, we are gonna be talking about gay men and their misogyny problem. Y'all thought I was joking when I said gay men. I'm coming for that ass. Give me a couple weeks. We need to talk about gay men and the misogyny problem. And it's like, I wish between a couple of weeks ago and now that I didn't have much reason to be talking about this, but the conversations naturally, as it does on the internet, just spews out. And like, naturally, there's so many things, examples I can give over the last few weeks alone. But yeah, I want to talk about gay men and how gay men have a misogyny problem. I think so frequently the conversations online can look like discussing how a lot of women are sliding into transphobia, homophobia, and things like that. And I think a lot of the times it kind of tricks people into not seeing the reality that gay men very much so have a misogyny problem. And I've forever been one to call it out. And I think it's important for me to put this on wax in a way that really where I feel like I can flush out all of my thoughts in one sitting, or most of my thoughts, because I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, I'm sure, but I do want to get into the nitty gritty. But in order for us to have a conversation, y'all know how I feel about shared definitions. We all have to have a shared understanding of what we are talking about. So I'm going to define patriarchy and I'm going to define misogyny because those terms are the foundation to this conversation so you can understand we don't need to be this is one thing about the internet too. We're always having different conversations because a lot of us have different definitions for the same thing. I saw this one creator yesterday talking about how a lot of times people change the definition of words because they morally feel like that word just should apply to something different. That is not how words work. We are going to use the terms of how they need to be used so we can have a conversation. So let's just get right into it. So the patriarchy refers to a social system in which men hold primary power and authority in political, economic, social, and family structures. It describes how institutions and norms are organized in ways that tend to center and privilege men in leadership, decision making, and public life. The concept doesn't imply that every individual man has power, but rather that the system as a whole is structured around male dominance. Historical examples include laws that are restricting women from owning property, voting, or entering certain professions. That's the patriarchy, a system in which men are set up to have more power and authority. If you don't believe we live in a patriarchal society, I say look around to who is like in charge of making most decisions for society at large. Like, has there ever been a woman president in the entire history of the United States? No, and we are very behind in that regard in the world. But there haven't been a lot of women world leaders. Have there been women world leaders? Absolutely. There's some women world leaders right now, like the president of Mexico is a woman, but that is exceptions, not the rule. And that is why patriarchy is a thing, and we have to acknowledge that. Okay, moving on to misogyny. Misogyny is the hostility, contempt, or prejudice directed toward women. While patriarchy describes a structural arrangement, misogyny is more about attitude and behavior, the active dislike, distrust, or devaluation of women. It can manifest in obvious ways like harassment and violence, or subtle ways like dismissiveness, stereotyping, treating women as less competent or credible. Okay? The two concepts are related but distinct. A useful way to think about the difference is patriarchy is the system, and misogyny is one of the ways of enforcing the mechanisms. It's an enforcement mechanism to keep the system going. Okay. So, going back to the definition of misogyny, I just want to be clear. This is prejudice towards prejudice and hostility towards women. Okay. We got that. Everybody agree? Raise your hand if you agree that that's the definition. Everybody need to see some hands raised. We on the same page? Are we on the same page before we get this going? Okay, great. Let's keep it going. I want to be clear because this is also where I see a lot of people getting twisted and confuddled in the whole conversation, too. It's that gay men do not have the same proximity to power as cisgendered heterosexual men. Okay, there's going to be some different proximity to power between that. And I call it like proximity to power math. I'm working on a name, so don't judge me on that. But like it's a math, like you have to do the equation because at the core of power in this current iteration of society is cisgender heterosexual white male wealthy landowning like capitalists, like that is the center of power. Those are the people making the most decisions. So the more you tick off from having those markers as your identity, the less power you're going to have, but you still have a certain proximity to power. Okay. Like a black gay man is going to have a different proximity to power than a white gay man. But there is a certain proximity to power you inherently have as someone who is male or a man in a patriarchal society. I am somebody who identifies as non-binary, and still, as a male in a patriarchal society, I have a certain degree of power. I can walk down the street and be safer than a woman. Okay. We have to acknowledge these things. A lot of times, I also see these are like mostly the baby queers. Like, I see a lot of the baby queers like confusing like being subject to harassment for being queer as like a dismissal for the proximity to power that a lot of us have as males. And some of us are more feminine presenting queers, gays, and some of us are less feminine presenting. I don't know. Like, if you saw a picture of me without knowing who I am, you would probably just assume I'm like a piece of trade. I am not a piece of trade. And I know I'm not trade. Please don't confuse what I'm saying for that. I'm saying if you saw me with stripped of the context of knowing me as a person, somebody walking down the street and not knowing who I am, they would probably just assume that I'm just a man. Okay, and that comes with a certain piece of power because in society that is seen as like a certain type of authority. But again, as a black like male presenting person, I'm gonna have a different access to power than a male presenting person. Okay, people will move out the way for a white man, not me, okay? Because I'm not gonna do that. But some people won't move out the way for a black one, if that makes sense. I just want us to get these definitions and terms out the way first, okay? so we can actually get down to it. Everybody does not have the same proximity to power, even if they are men, even if they are women. White women have more proximity to that power in a patriarchal society because of their inherited like whiteness versus black women who do not have that inherited whiteness and probably have not probably but have a lot more of a harder time navigating society because they are not closer, like they're not close to that proximity to that center of power as other people in this specific context. Your nationality factors into this math too, right? Where you are born, the lottery of being born somewhere is going to impact how much power you have, right? Somebody who is a white woman living in America may be struggling more than say a do white people struggle? Like, of course, white people struggle, but like, I'm trying to think of a place where white, like an Armenian white person. Are Armenians white? According to the law, I'm going on a tangent. I'm sorry. Do the math is my point. Everybody has to also consider that these are very complex and nuanced topics. And per usual, I'm going to be speaking but I cannot cover every single nuance. Another thing that happens in these conversations that derails them so quickly is that a lot of people get very upset because every specific nuance piece of information can't be covered. Y'all, I am only one person. I would be talking for 5 years straight if I had to cover every single nuance. Are, of course, exceptions to the rule. And my rule of thumb is that I discuss patterns. I'm not discussing every single situation. So know that too. I have to say these things before we get into the problem that gay men have with misogyny because, again, you're going to want to disconnect the moment you can find something to criticize or disagree with. And I'm going to ask that you do not do that, especially if you are a gay man listening to this because and the women too, okay? Anybody listening to this, goddamn it, do not disconnect your brain from this conversation because you think that it is lacking a specific nuance to it because these topics are extremely nuanced and there's so much that could be touched on, but I'm going to touch on a specific part of the conversation. Okay? Okay. I also want to note that there is danger in blanketed statements for that reason. An example, Chapel Roan said that she doesn't listen to art from men. Look, I know Chapel Roan is under a lot of fire right now. I love Chapel Roan, but I think Chapel Roan, this example is a perfect one of why these conversations are more nuanced than we give it air. And she said that she doesn't listen to art from men because men do not make good art. Granted, people were highlighting that she is someone who's inspired by drag, which is art form created by and largely ran like by men. Like to remind people that I would like to remind people that the art of drag was actually invented by a black trans woman who was a formerly enslaved person. Like that's the real tea on that. And that is not talked about enough, but that's sidebar. But Chappell, in saying that men do not make good art, kind of is discounting like black and brown men well, black men specifically, who have been parts of making historical contributions to music that lay the foundation for what she does today. And look, I don't think it's intentional because again, you can't cover nuance in every single statement that you make. And I'm in no way, shape, or form faulting Chappell for that. But I am saying I'm going to try my best not to make the most blanketed statements because there is danger in blanketed statements. I do not want to make gay men a scapegoat in this conversation. And I do not want to make gay men like out to be the boogeyman. I'm simply highlighting an issue that I'm witnessing and noticing myself in the way that gays engage with women, both online and offline. Okay, so not too much in the conversation. I don't need you to say that all gay men are gonna burn in hell, because that's not nice. But also, we are not making blanketed statements and hating entire groups of marginalized people. In fact, you will see by the end of this that I want us to come together and not beef with each other. But in order for us to do that, we have to be able to address the things, right? We're cool, right? We can talk, we can chat. Like, why not? We're family. So again, I ask that you hold some complexity in this conversation. But yeah, gay men have a history of misogyny, and I think it's time to talk about it. Gay men have an issue with misogyny, and it is so crystal clear to me that they do. And I think if anybody is gonna come in here denying it, you're gonna be in the wrong conversation. One of my biggest gripes with gay men is how gay men consume media, right? Gay men are some of the biggest supporters of a lot of women in the music space, in the just in the media space in general. But the way that gay men can consume, notice I'm saying consume women and support, quote unquote, support women, it's very misogynistic sometimes. A lot of the times, gay men hide their misogyny behind standing these women. And if you don't know what standing means, standing references like being super fans of like these women, but in being placing these women on these pedestals, they in many ways dehumanize them. More on that later. But yeah, gay men, even in like their like a lot of the ways that gay men engage with things like reality TV, baddies, the way gay men do all of the things media related, it really highlights to me a deep issue with misogyny. I'm trying to think, when do I want to touch on the EJ Johnson of it all? So EJ Johnson, who is I don't know what EJ Johnson identifies as. I don't think EJ Johnson knows what EJ Johnson identifies as, like themselves. I don't know what EJ's pronouns are either. But EJ is Magic Johnson's child, who is male. I don't know. Wait, somebody tell me what. Let me hold on, y'all. Let me look up EJ Johnson's. I need to know what the hell EJ Johnson's pronouns are before I continue. Hold on. Because we're gonna respect the pronouns, but we're gonna get you together at the same time, EJ. Hold on. Hold on, because we gonna respect it. Okay. So EJ Johnson is gender fluid. And they go by they them. Okay, period. Okay. I'm cool with that. However, that does not erase the misogyny because again, EJ Johnson is a male presenting for the most part person in a patriarchal society. Go back to the beginning of what I just said. EJ Johnson is Magic Johnson's child. And EJ Johnson recently had a very viral interview where EJ was saying that they look better than any woman who, like, they can outdress any woman. They look better than most women in, like, the way that they dress. And that is blatant misogyny. I'm so sorry. I see a lot of the queers. I don't really see a lot of queer people defending that nonsense. I definitely am not defending that nonsense. I had one take where I was talking about how like desire and disgust run parallel to each other. Shouts out to Deshaun. But because my mutual Deshaun had originally said that years ago, and it was just like, yeah, like it is possible for straight men to find themselves like low key attracted, but like that's a more nuanced conversation for another day. My point being, what EJ Johnson said about women was extremely misogynistic, and I can tell that EJ Johnson is like frankly has gender identity issues, and you that does not mean that being a person who is gender fluid makes you someone who has gender identity issues. I'm saying EJ Johnson themselves may not have a certain level of comfort when it comes to their gender identity, and typically what happens with men and males in a patriarchal society is when they cannot address their own emotional discomfort, they project and spew that out onto women. And I believe that is what EJ Johnson is doing. And this is not like my therapeutic opinion. This is my opinion as someone who lives life and has a fucking brain. Obviously, EJ Johnson is a deeply insecure person because only deeply insecure people talk about other people like that, but specifically women. It seems as if EJ does not know how to really align with and feel comfortable in their gender expression. You can be comfortable in your queerness and not like attack and antagonize women. And what EJ Johnson said was antagonistic towards women. And that's one recent example of like somebody who is gay and queer really, really just like laying heavy piles of shit onto women. Okay. And I also want to even highlight that I've been accused many, many times of being misogynistic. And I personally don't think like a lot of the accusations lobbed at me were fair or true, but it is always a conversation I wanted to have publicly too. Because I like one, most of the people I work with and for are like women or genderqueer people, but like people who are impacted by the patriarchy, I like consider myself to be someone who works with patriarchy impacted people. So I don't think a lot of the accusations were fair, mostly because the internet like loves to like create narratives about people. But I also think part of it is that a lot of women are naturally in a patriarchal society where a lot of people who are male and men align with patriarchal thought and enforce that through misogyny. It makes sense that a lot of women are skeptical and also like hesitant to trust men and males. And you should. I am not asking no woman to trust me. Why? Because anybody who's asking of that of you is weird. One, but I don't need to be trusted by women because women have a right to be skeptical and like hesitant to like throw their trust beyond a person. I also understand that, okay, more context. I think I've said this a million and five times, but I have a women and gender studies degree. And like in getting my women and gender studies degree, y'all know I'm a lifelong student. I know that unlearning patriarchy, unlearning misogyny, it is a lifelong journey, one that I'm personally dedicated to, whether people rock with me or not. So I don't really need people to tell me whether or not they think I'm like, this is not me asking for any brownie points or for you, anybody to defend me. This is me being honest about like those accusations because I'm not, I don't really feel a way about it because again, like I understand why women are so hesitant. People like EJ Johnson or why women are so skeptical and hesitant around like a lot of different people, and that is valid and okay in my opinion. I just ask that you like any woman listening to this, like that you're open to hearing this. But I want to talk a little bit more about my own personal experiences with being accused of being misogynistic. Like I get accused a lot of like there was this one stretch of time where I was accused of hating black women, and this happened because, oh my God, if you want to know the full story, because I'm going to give a brief synopsis, you can go back to my first episode. I think it's the first episode, second or first episode of my podcast with Christina on cancel culture, which by the way is not coming back. I think I should. I'm thinking of bringing Christina on again so we could talk about like bringing that to a close. But like that podcast is not coming back. But I explain more of this story on there. But a lot of the accusations of me hating black women stem from uh emo black thought. Oh my God. Clap if you remember emo black thought. Laugh at it now, but I in no way am I dismissing like the pain that came from that entire situation. But like 2 or 3 weeks before Mo Black Thought came out and told everybody that he was pretending to be a black woman, he had came to me and let me know. And he also told me one, he was facing like a lot of racist persecution at his school, which is why he like went by a pseudonym online and he was operating under anonymity, and two, that he was also secretly bisexual and his mother didn't know, and he was afraid of what coming out would do to his family. So naturally, I'm like, this is a person who helped me to raise money to get through college because in my last year of college, I got into a car accident, and because of that car accident, it was really hard for me to get back and forth to school to finish. He helped me to raise the funds for it. So I'm like, okay, I will help you like figure this out. I initially told him, you do not need to do no goddamn magazine reveal. I don't think people are gonna receive it well. I think you should just like write like out like an actual explanation and apologize. I asked him, did you receive any money from this account? Did you raise any funds? He said, no. I said, okay, because if you did, that would be different. That was a lie. The lie detector test determined that was a lie. So yeah, he just when he came out in a way that I told him not to do. And naturally it went really fucking bad. What wound up happening was people knew that I had awareness of him being a man in advance, but I tried my best to explain like, no, the only reason I didn't say anything is because he made it clear that he was being persecuted, like he was threatened with lynchings like at his school, like that type of persecution. And he also was like coming out, and I did not want to out him. But naturally, at the time, nobody was hearing that shit. And it was hard for people to believe that I was somebody who could be manipulated too. That's a problem I run into on the internet like a lot. Like, and I understand people have a certain standard for me, and my own cross to bear. Like I don't get the chance to make the same mistakes or to be subject to like being manipulated like everybody else, and that's cool. That's cool. Like I don't really, it happens. But he lied to me, and I was trying to help somebody who helped me. But in that support for him, trying to encourage and help him through that because, again, he was somebody who helped me through a really tough time. And he lied to me about a lot of the details of what he was doing in that account. I had no idea he was in no group chats talking about like really sensitive stuff to women. I had no idea that he was collecting money. He lied to me about that. I had no idea like about him lying about endometriosis. I had no idea about none of that. But I also was like not closely involved in the process at all. Like I think a lot of people thought that I knew for a very extended period of time. I did not. I knew for 3 weeks. At the time of those 3 weeks, I was going through my own very serious life-changing, altering stuff, like, I was really wrapped up in some really heavy shit on my own end. I was in a very toxic and abusive relationship. My mind was on my own shit, respectfully, so I was very loosely aware, and also a lot of other people knew, just putting that out there too, but to this day, I'm not gonna lob that at nobody else because I don't think anybody deserves lashings for it, but because I was, like, somebody who they could latch on to after he basically just deleted the account and dipped after that happened, I was someone who was still publicly available for people to jump on. So from that day, people were accusing me of hating Black women because of that situation. Granted, that same day when all of the information came out, I got on live with a bunch of Black women, and I was immediately like, y'all, I am so sorry. Okay, first off, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that this man was doing all of this stuff. And I apologize because I could have handled that much different. And a lot of the women were super, super understanding. I'm the type of person like, and if you follow me for a while and you really follow me, you know, like I'm the type of person I'm not gonna duck or dodge accountability, and I don't want to miss any opportunities for growth. So that is like the main thing people say. Another more recent example of people accusing me of being hating Black women, y'all. I'm gonna put it on the floor. It was because of the whole Kamala Harris, like, losing the election, Beyonce Bowl conversation. A lot of people, for some reason, have this misconception that I was, like, very anti-Kamala and, like, I was like, "Don't vote for Kamala." That is actually the opposite. I was actually on the campaign trail encouraging people to vote for Kamala, and what's really funny to me is, like, I don't know where that specific rumor came from. I to this day get jumped every time I say that it's ridiculous to say that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris were the same candidate because in what universe would Kamala Harris be doing any of these goddamn things that this man is doing? Let's be also fucking everlastingly fucking for real. But yeah, no, that is one misconception about me. Another one is that when the Beyonce Bowl happened, a lot of people think that I was like slamming Beyonce, which first off, let me be clear. Beyonce is mother to me. I am a huge Beyonce fan. I have like a deep respect for the art and creative genius of Beyonce. So my initial statement on that entire Beyonce Bowl hellscape of a conversation, if you don't know what the Beyonce Bowl conversation is, consider yourself lucky. But in brief, Beyonce performed her Cowboy Carter album at a halftime show on Christmas, and it was really, really amazing. One of my mutuals actually shouts out to Hannah had said that Beyonce is like the biggest propagandist, and people were livid. My initial stance was, like Beyonce is not spouting American propaganda. Beyonce is actually nodding to Black Southern culture and highlighting that Black people are often left out of these conversations and like excluded from what America is. And she's challenging and critiquing America, hence the album opening with the song American Requiem, which is a funeral song. She is saying like America has to die in order to be renewed, where it can respect and understand that you cannot erase the red and that white and blue, okay? Meaning people's blood have been shed. We have to acknowledge the atrocities that have happened in this country. Beyonce was criticizing America, not like big upping it, okay? That was my initial stance, but then I got accused of hating Black women because people were really mad at Hannah, and I was like, not too much, because like people were in my comments like, oh, like you need to like get at her, like I'm like, y'all, I'm not gonna throw somebody away because we disagree on one thing. Like, that's just so ridiculous to me. And because of that, I got accused of hating Black women. I just want y'all to understand, okay? And I'm sure other people. Oh wait, and oh wait, actually, there is actually one more thing. that recently happened. Okay. This I'm just putting it on wax. Feel free to skip through this part. But I'm putting it on wax because I want y'all to understand that there is like I'm not exempt from these conversations. Okay. This sounds like me just blabbering, but I promise there's a point to it. But there's this other example, and I can kind of take some accountability for this one because I could have used different language, but I was mad at the time, so I don't really give too much of a fuck. I'll be honest, because I'm still where I'm from, and I'm not gonna erase like who I am. But there was this moment where people were having a conversation around should poor people have reproductive rights or not. And of course, it's never framed as should poor people have reproductive rights? It's always, I don't think poor people should have children. And it's like, well, having children is part of having reproductive rights. Maybe we should be challenging whether or not it's okay for us to live in a society that allows people to be poor, where you should pay to have a child as opposed to being paid to have a child and take care of a child. But no, instead, we're saying poor people should limit their reproductive abilities and not have the same reproductive rights as people with money. When I was defending poor people's right to have reproductive rights, okay, people were coming at me heavy, and this one girl was like, well, as a social worker, mind you, she does not have a social worker degree or license, so she is not a social worker. She's like trying to talk over me and I like being really condescending and rude to me. And I was like, I hate to drop my nuts on you, but like I outrank you in every position that you just named. I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker. You would be coming to me to address these things, not the other way around. So you cannot speak over me with authority when I say that poor people deserve reproductive rights. And because I said drop my nuts, the girl first she's like you're sexually harassing me, which is like, girl, I'm gayer than a fucking elf on ice skates. What are you talking about? I'm gayer than pom poms on two Christmas trees. I don't. But that's neither here nor there. But I understand how she interpreted that way. But then when she found out that it's just AAVE for flexing, okay, and it's a like pretty common in a lot of places to say like I'm gonna drop my nuts on them. Like I'm finna drag. Like I had listed out my accolades after I said I hate to drop my nuts. Like, but I'm this, and this. And she interpreted that because she was no shade. She's married to a troglodyte. Like she had a white husband, so I don't think she quite understood the AAVE that was happening there. And she was specifically triggered because y'all, this is gonna be bad. I'm sorry, but this is me keeping it a bean. This is how I feel. The girl was specifically triggered because I'm black, like no shade, and it was a black girl, and she's like, oh, like da 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 da, and then she had this white boy crusading on her behalf. That I'm gonna cut all of this out. But yeah, these are moments where people have questioned like whether or not I hate women or not. I do not. But these are moments where people question whether or not I hated women. I do not hate women, but I do understand that naturally I have things to unlearn too. I was talking a few weeks ago and I said somebody was pussy, and they were like, "Whoa, how can you say that you love women and you're using like their private parts as like a derogatory term?" I said, "Facts. Thank you for highlighting that because I never really thought about it like that. Let me not use that word anymore like that." And I don't. Like I try not to. I use coward instead, which is like kind of like easy. It's an easy like resolve. So I'm still unlearning too, and that is my main point in saying that it's like there's complexity here. I do, however, want to talk about this concept that I saw one creator talking about. They called it the woke paradox. And it's where when you are someone who aligns with like progressive values and ideas, it is so easy for you to be brutally criticized and checked on those ideas versus if you are somebody who is not like aligned with those values and morals. Like if you, for example, are surrounded by a bunch of people who have progressive values and want to see the world progress past these like systemic issues, it is very likely that you will be heavily criticized more than, say, an actual misogynist, somebody who actively hates women. And it's because you're in more, if you ask me, it is due to being in closer proximity to the people who can be hurt because you are like more accepted by those people. So I also understand that that is just the thing. It's the thing. Um, And when I say woke paradox, it's like Chappell Roan is criticized by the left more than they criticize people like Donald Trump. Yeah, I would say that is actually a thing. Like, it's just kind of ridiculous. Like, and why is that? It's because I think people, one, are perpetuating a lot of systemic things like misogyny and the patriarchy. And two, I just think like when you are just somebody who has progressive ideologies, people find it easier to criticize you because they know that you give a fuck. But more on that another time. Gay men, like I said, have a misogyny problem. I'm not exempt from this. I think when you really dedicate yourself to learning and unlearning, you can address it. The misogyny problem comes in the way that men, like gay men, interact with women. I think gay men can be very degrading to women, like I said before, when it comes to things like reality TV, music, standing these women, they're often picking apart the way they look, like their body sizes, their performance, like their art, their creativity, how they walk, how they talk. They pick apart every single aspect of women and womanhood, and I think it is really a huge issue. I also think it can show up in false allyship, like people like the DL Whisperer, for example, who clearly has a lot of identity issues as well, who riles women up and tries to push women towards doing more unhealthy things like leaning into systems like misogyny and patriarchy through like the antagonizing of queer people, right? There are so many different ways that I believe that queer men and the gays, whoever you want to name in this, however you want to name the category of people, how they kind of like mess with women. I'll be honest. And also, like, I've seen gay men call women every derogatory name in the book. I don't even call women the B word. Like, even playfully, I don't really like, maybe with my sisters, but only playfully. I don't call women like, I think, yeah, it's so many examples I can lean on. And there's so many clear examples that aren't just EJ Johnson. There is the Perez Hiltons of the world. There is the Jeffree Stars, who is a very disgusting person overall, but definitely hates women. Okay. There are other gays like Kanye West. Let me stop. Okay. That one, sorry. I'm gonna leave that one alone. There are other, like, so many examples of just queer men being like very antagonistic and misogynistic towards women. And it starts with this, it's both in both, okay? I want to say it's both because there is the dehumanizing that comes from pedestaling these women so they can eventually knock them off. Okay, it's dehumanizing to see women as these godlike figures who are like the center of their like the idolatry. Like they are idolizing these women so much so to the point where they even pick apart and like not only just the subject of their idolization, but like they also pick apart women who they deem as these women's competition. It is a serious issue. The way that gay men engage with women online, it is very misogynistic. And I think we have to address this on its face. The gays have a misogyny problem. But also, like the dehumanization can come through like simply seeing women as underneath or beneath. I have actually engaged with gay people in real life, gay men in real life who say stuff like they hate women. And I do not say that shit around me. I do not rock like that. That is really fucking crazy. You do not need to be up around me talking like that because I think women and gays have like a long, complex, like allegiance that has not been so nice recently through the patriarchy. I'm not even gonna say that gays and women, like we in many ways do have a natural allegiance, but in many ways we allow patriarchy and that like desire to cling to power in the patriarchy to cause a division between us. Because that's also a two-way street. There are so many women who are homophobic. Why? Because they simply I don't know why. Why are y'all homophobic? But I do know why. The reason why women can be homophobic in a patriarchal society is because, again, like women naturally are skeptical. That's one reason because, it's already hard enough being a woman and trying to cling to the little bit of power you have in your femininity or what you deem to be feminine because anything outside of being straight and heterosexual is hetero and cis is going to be deemed feminine in a patriarchal society or more feminine. So a lot of women can feel like the gays are encroaching upon their space. I know a lot of women feel away when men wear makeup and wigs because it's like that's for us. And it's like gender is such a silly concept, so it's not for you, but also, like, I understand why you feel that because you want spaces for yourself in a society that takes spaces away from you constantly and limits your ability to maneuver and move. So, yes, that makes sense. Some women want to appeal more to, like, men who they see as, like, having power, and queer men do not have the same power. Some women want to be desired and know that queer men will not desire them, and therefore they will, like, I understand all of that. But gay men can be misogynistic for a number of reasons. It could be because they also want to cling to the power that comes with the patriarchy, and they see disparaging women as a way to get closer. It could be because they've been conditioned. It's often, okay, because they've been conditioned to see women as less than, and some of the few people who are beneath them in a patriarchal society. It could be a number of reasons why gay men perpetuate a misogyny, but and the patriarchy. But it's all just not okay. And I think it's important for us to have the conversation. That's what we're doing right now. When it comes to how gays interact with these pop stars and divas, one example that comes to mind is this Swiftologist person, right? Swiftologist is this frankly very boring white twunk. Can't call him a twink because he's a little past that expiration point, but like he is a twunk, and he just criticizes women all day on his platform. He talks about their music. He's telling them that they're boring, that they're uninspiring. He was saying that Zara Larson was like a flop, which is crazy because I love me some Zara Larson, so not too much on her. He was saying that Manon was lazy, a black woman who is in this like international girl group, Cat's Eye. He was calling her lazy. This is what I mean when I say like the way that like queer men consume, and that's why I'm saying consume. They treat women like objects that they are picking apart, like, and not human beings. When they consume these women in the media, it becomes an issue. Gay men have a misogyny problem, and calling that behavior out, I think, is so important. And I'm willing to say it. It is fucking disgusting, and it needs to stop. Actively disgusted with how gay men engage with women, especially when it comes to music and like this idolizing them, putting them on these pedestals only to push them off of it, picking them apart, everything that they do. I find it to be reductive, and I find it to be boring, and I find it to be like disgusting, frankly. It's disgusting. Yeah. And it's dehumanizing. And I think a lot of gays think that because they buy the tickets, they buy the merch, they support them in some ways, that it's okay for them to do it. And I'm gonna be the first to say no, it is. It is not. Yeah. I will also address one other thing that frequently happens, and I know a lot of women feel a way about this one because this has been a conversation that's been in rotation for many a year. But a lot of black women are often like, gays are emulating us, they're copying us, and the reality is that's them white gays. But that's a longer conversation that I think a lot of people probably are not at the space to receive. A lot of white gays do actually emulate black women. That Landon Romano, I think that's his name, that white boy who copied his whole steez from that one V girl. I think it's like hilariously V or something, simply V. He's copied her whole comedy shtick and made hella bags off of it, okay? And like Landon Romano is like those white gays who are constantly copying off the black women around them. But there is a misconception around that when it comes to the black gays, because black gays simply just, we share a feminine origin. We all grew up in the same households. So we emulate femininity in different ways, don't get me wrong. But we are just feminine in the same energy because we're all black and we have the same aunties and mamas. And I guess you could say like that's emulating those people, but I would say like that's being raised by the people you were raised by and having traits of the people you were raised by. Landon Romano and them white twins were not raised by no black people, so why they acting like y'all? That's a longer conversation for another day. Yeah. Ultimately, I think there is a lack of empathy on both parts for the experience and the position in patriarchy, but specifically men is worse. Women, I give like a very strong pass to for like having a harder time trusting any man in a patriarchy, let alone a gay one. I don't care if it's just any man. I give women a pass for like having a lack of trust. But also like gays have been subject to like harm from like homophobic moms. We've had I can personally name a bunch of homophobic experiences I've had with women. But I know personally that that is not all women. In fact, most women are not, in my experience, not homophobic. There are a lot of homophobic women, don't get me wrong, but most women, in my experience, just do not give a fuck. And I think if it sucks that there's such a lack of empathy on both parts, but it definitely sucks that there's a huge lack of empathy coming from the gay men towards women and why they feel the ways that they do. My one thing is don't be transphobic because subscribing to these ideas that gender is rigid is actually like keeping all of us in chains, like having such a like strong reaction to somebody else like being who they are under a patriarchy just reinforces patriarchy. So long as you're not transphobic, I empathize with you and like you can hate, let me not say that because you can't hate gays. However, I can understand your hesitation to trust the gays. And I just want empathy on both parts because I think there's so much power in unity. And I cannot emphasize enough. I say it all the time. I talked about this with my water tower theory, which is basically the concept that all of our oppressions are interwoven, deeply interwoven, and being oppressive towards another marginalized group weakens your rights as a marginalized person too. Women are marginalized. Like, yeah. And I think like a lot of the times gays don't recognize how marginalized women are. And that's like a huge that's a huge problem because it's frankly a little narcissistic. The closer you are in proximity to power, the harder it is for you to understand that. And some gays, frankly, be sipping on that like patriarchal Kool-Aid. And I don't know if y'all remember me saying this, but like I say all the time, the intersection between a marginalized identity and a privileged identity is often a victim complex, and a victim complex is often paired with a little bit of narcissism, in my opinion. Meaning that when people are so attached to the idea that their marginalized identity is like a get out of jail free card for having to take accountability for their more privileged identities, they often have a hard time empathizing with people who are multi-marginalized. Like, say, a black woman is going to be more oppressed than a white gay man. That is just how, like, that's the math. And I'm not going to sit up here and say that that's the oppression Olympics because it's actually just simply the math and it's the truth. A black woman is going to go through not the same type of oppression as me as a black gay male, but they're going to go through worse. So why? Because they're a woman. And at the end of the day, I have the privilege of being a male in society, even if we're both black and multi-marginalized. Like a black queer woman is going to go through more than a black straight woman. That's just life. It shouldn't be, but that's what it is. And I think having a privileged identity that you refuse to acknowledge really makes it very difficult for us to empathize with each other. So, and I'm not putting the onus on people who are multi-marginalized. I'm not putting the onus on women because at the end of the day, women are women existing under a patriarchy. I'm putting the onus on the gays because it is our responsibility and duty to show up and actively try to do better, frankly. But there is power in unity. I think if all of us like band together and really address these things and dispel this BS, hopefully we can get closer and get some stuff done, y'all. At the end of the day, I really want all of us to get along, and it's hard to do that when gays frankly misogynistic as fuck. I get it, women. Trust me, I do. And like I said in the beginning, I shared these examples of when I've been accused of being misogynistic. And I know inherently as a male existing under a patriarchy that I'm inherently misogynistic. I don't run away from that. I lean into learning and unlearning as much as I possibly can because that's just the reality. We've all been conditioned to uphold the patriarchy. Just like when I like saw would catch information and learn it later. Like we're all susceptible to being manipulated. We're all susceptible to propaganda. We're all under this. And the more you feel like you're not susceptible to that, the less likely it is that you're gonna do the work necessary to unlearn these things. But yeah, power is in unity. To the gays listening to this, I really want you to free yourselves from misogyny. It hurts you more than you think. Frankly, when you are leaning into the consumption of women, picking women apart, you open the door for you to be picked apart later. Because, yeah, women might be first on the chopping block because that's the way society typically rolls, but you will be next. Sweetie, you'll be next in every scenario. Back to the water tower theory, you will be next. And I want gay men to really like learn how to challenge themselves to unlearn these things. Like you should know as a gay man what patriarchy is. You should know what misogyny is. And I don't mean just interpersonal misogyny. You should know systemic misogyny. You should be learning, actively learning these things. I think it is our duty, frankly. We're not I'm not saying that we're like divine protectors of no women or nothing like that, but I am, however, saying like it is our duty to show up and to be a part of dismantling this shit just as much as women have and are. It is our duty to join them in that fight. But so many gay men are so consumed in sipping the Kool-Aid that they don't want to challenge themselves to get out of that line of thinking. There's a misogyny problem and we have to unlearn it. We have to unlearn it. And one way for us to unlearn it, I think, is frankly dismantling our views of how we interact with each other. Gay men can be very heteronormative, meaning they operate as if they are straight men, even though they are not, with one another. And it's very disappointing when it happens because I think we have the opportunity to approach our relationships in such a unique and queer way. And many of us do. I'm not saying all gay men are heteronormative, but enough are that it reinforces and again perpetuates patriarchy by using things like gender roles and norms that again are constructed to oppress women. Y'all ain't hearing me though. But yeah, it's all of us or none of us. And I cannot emphasize enough, okay, to the gays listening, you need to unlearn or dedicate yourself to the journey of unlearning patriarchy and misogyny. It is a journey that you have to commit to lifelong. And if you don't do it, you're going to like perpetuate your own oppression. There is no exception to that rule. There is no exception to that rule if you are not actively challenging yourself not to be misogynistic. Gays are very misogynistic. Yeah. And there's a history of gay men doing this too. Did you know? Okay, this is an interesting thing that I learned when I was getting my women in gender studies degree. Bayard Rustin, who is a gay civil rights leader, he is the one who organized the March for Martin Luther King. And he actually prevented Black women from speaking at that march. Black women who have been part of that movement, Black women who put in the work for that movement, Black women who created that movement were huge parts of creating that movement. He prevented them from having a voice. He stopped them from having a voice. I want y'all to know that this is deep. It is that deep. And I can keep going. There's so many examples of gays perpetuating again and reinforcing patriarchy and misogyny. There are many examples. We have a misogyny problem in the queer community, and I think it's important for us to acknowledge that. In fact, I'm not gonna never not acknowledge it's a lot of double negatives. I'm never not gonna acknowledge that. Okay. Yeah. Also, y'all, thank you for being here again, because bear with me. I am also moving, and this is I've been trying to keep it like under wraps, but if you are looking at the video, you're probably like, where's your stuff slowly disappearing in the background? Yes, it is. I've been in the middle of a move for these last couple weeks, and it's been very grueling. I'm in the final phase, packing, getting ready to get the stuff up on out of here. So if I have not hit something, please keep in mind I'm also like very exhausted from moving. But yeah, that's where I'm gonna close that out. I really think we have a misogyny problem. And I pray that the gays heard at least a little bit of that. And EJ Johnson, shame on you. And the conversation that spewed out after that, because I made videos like addressing the women who for some reason made that about trans women, because I thought that was weird. Like then it became I'm not respecting your pronouns because of EJ Johnson's bullshit. But like EJ Johnson, you were actually wrong and weird for that. Don't talk about women like that. That's very fucking weird and strange. Yeah. Okay, moving on to our next segment. Ask Dr. Durag and friends. We don't got a friend today, but you can always feel free to answer the question below. We have the question, have you ever seen a sort of intersection between what you know about astrology and what your patients tell you without violating HIPAA? Also, how do you feel about Jupiter and Gemini? Okay, so do I see any correlation between astrology and what clients tell me? Yes. I'm trying to see because I do not want to violate HIPAA, but I'll say I have had clients who had health issues, and I would look at their Chiron. They either have a Chiron in Virgo or a Chiron in a sixth house, or something aspecting the sixth house, which is like health, daily life, and stuff like that. Chiron is like the wound, a major wound that you have. Virgo is also associated with like daily life, daily tasks. It's associated with the sixth house, and that's in modern astrology. If you practice something different, that's fine. But yeah, astrology, believe it or not, in my opinion, is a great roadmap for things that you can work on and better as far as mental health. But I know there are a lot of people who are going to say, because I've been accused of being a fake therapist because I believe in astrology, but I don't know. I think astrology, much like anything else that is completely made up bullshit, can be a great tool to self reflect with. Like, did you know that love languages is a farce? That it is a fake thing that was made up by some sham of a preacher who was just trying to excuse men. It actually, ironically enough, the love languages is misogynistic because it was created by a pastor who is actually not in any way, shape, or form a psychologist, did not do any educational studies or any research. He just came up with these concepts. Like, the love language of physical touch is actually to get women to like kind of comply with their husbands when they want sex, even if the woman doesn't, aka rape. Okay. No shade. Like, the love languages is completely made up BS. Yet it can be a great tool for people to assess how they want to be nurtured and loved and cared for. Do you understand? It don't gotta be real if it's not real to you for it to be valid for people to reflect with. That being said, I do believe, like, you could look at, like, astrology and what astrology says about certain aspects about your chart, and you will likely find something that you can be like that you can identify with and be like, okay, like this is something about me that I resonate with, and I can use this as a means to kind of assess and see how much this aligns with me. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's fun. It's kind like just let the girlies have their things. Even though astrology is thousands of years old and has been used to predict many a thing, I just still think like, it's cute. Like, and it is something that I noticed a lot of correlation with. Pluto is a good placement for you to look at to see like things about your mental health and well-being. Your north node, oh my god, if you're going through a nodal reversal, I pray for you. If you don't know what that is, look up like north and south node in reverse. My god, if you're going through a Saturn return, shouts out to my Saturns in Aries. I pray for you because astrologically speaking, that is a tough time. I just got out of mine. It was not a fun experience. But perfection years is another correlation that I see as like really a good thing to reflect on with astrology. If you're not familiar with perfection years in astrology is basically the concept that each year of your life is associated with a different house in the astrological wheel. And depending on the house year that you're having, the age that you're in, those themes will be heavy in rotation for you that year. That could be for the good or for the bad. Okay. I'm 31 and I'm in an eighth house perfection year, which is taxes, debts, inheritance, death, things like that. And those themes have very much been present in my life. Last year was a seventh house perfection year. I don't even want to talk about my love life from last year. Oh my God. But I learned so many major lessons in that. But I really recommend, if you really want to learn, Google perfection years, because them perfection years really hit. I was actually just tweeting about this because somebody was like, "Oh my god, those ages 27 to 30 are really heavy." And it's like, yeah, 29 specifically, which is a sixth house perfection year, is a specific type of hell because you really got to work through that. And then I was talking about why everybody hated being the age of 23. And it's because 23 is a 12th house perfection year. And it's like your first one, I think, I would say your first one when you're cognizant and you can really reflect on it. 23 was so awful because 12th house perfection years come with endings. Ironically enough, the 12th house is also associated with like being imprisoned. And guess what? In my 12th house perfection year, I went to jail. Why? Because of police brutality. Like, I was not like I was of course it was cleared off my record because I was like just standing on a sidewalk and got attacked by police officers and then put in a jail cell. But the judge dismissed it so quickly because he was like, what the fuck? They were just standing on a sidewalk. All of that aside, but like the 12th house year, just pay attention to the theme. Perfection years are a good source. That's part of that question. I'm sorry, y'all, I be rambling. Forgive me. Again, I'm moving, so have some grace for me. Jupiter, the last part of the question, Jupiter and Gemini. I think Jupiter and Gemini can really be good. It just depends on the house that it's in. I really want a lot of people who like astrology to get into the house system, like really understand the houses and how the houses work. And then I want you to really get into the degree theory of it all. Because degree theory is when you really turn up and when it comes to this astrology stuff. But depending on the house that it's in, Jupiter and Gemini, I think it's cute. It's tea. It has its challenges, but it's cute. It's tea. Because naturally, yeah, it's cute. It's tea. That's it. I'll leave it at that. It might be a little chaotic, but it's cute. It's tea. Oh, yeah. Let's move on. Our next segment is What's Your Anthem? And this is where we share one piece of media, a song or something that's been keeping us sane in this like really chaotic world. And I mean, this world is chaotic, y'all. This week, I've been listening to a lot of SZA. SZA has been heavy in rotation for me, naturally, because I love SZA. But I've been listening to Far, her song Far on repeat. I've just been feeling that a lot. And I think it's because I'm moving. Yeah, shouts out to SZA. The song of the week for me is Far by SZA, but let me know what yours is below. And don't forget to leave a review for the podcast. And if it's not 5 stars, please write it in your journal first, reflect on that, and then come back and write 5 stars, please and thank you. Just kidding. Be honest. I don't really care. Lastly, but not leastly, we have the toolkit, which is something that helps us to grow all of our mental health toolkits. And for me this week, it's going to be phoning a friend. I think I've said this before, but y'all, I have been going through this move has been really tough. I had a packing party with my friends, meaning I invited friends over to help me pack. And I'm looking on the side here. It's one, two, three. My God, I didn't know it was this many. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Eight times two is what? I'm gay, y'all. I'm not that great at math. 18, 18 boxes all stacked up on the side of me, and my friends helped me to pack all of them. And there are more boxes out front. Like, I had a bunch of friends come over to help me pack, and me and one of my best friends, shout out to Anthony, we're having a conversation just about like how you really do have to inconvenience yourself for friends. Like, I take my friends to the airport. I will help my friends move. I don't know. I go above and beyond for mine, and I think y'all should go above and beyond for yours. And I also made a post not too long ago saying why it's so important for us to like give people something to nurture and show up for. Allow your friends to show up for you, but in order for you to be a good community member, you have to show up for community. With that being said, let me also say this. A lot of people want community, but they don't want to be community members. They don't want to inconvenience themselves for their friends. They believe that it's okay for you to never show up. You want to take, but you don't want to give, and that will leave you isolated each and every time. You have to be a good community member if you want community in return. And sometimes that means you're going to have to wake up early to help your friend move. Sometimes that means you're going to have to take your friend to the airport. Sometimes that means you're going to have to babysit for your friend. Sometimes that means you're going to have to like go to the birthday dinner you don't want to go to. Sometimes that means you're going to have to spend a little extra coin on that like ridiculous like trip that you just a little bit extra. If you don't have it, I'm not saying like you have to like break yourself or the bank for it, but you sometimes you're gonna have to go out of the way to be a good community member. And a lot of people should hear that. You know how Kaya said, who gonna be the boys? Who gonna be the community members? Y'all want community, but y'all don't want to be community. And on that note, let's end it there. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me this week. This was a chaotic episode. I'm moving, so please bear with me. But I hope that I touched on the misogyny problem that happens with queer men and men just in general. But I wanted to specifically touch on the queer aspect because I really think we all can be more aligned. Thank you for watching, per usual. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for rating, reviewing, listening. Like the numbers I hit my first 10K downloads, which I don't even think I'm supposed to be sharing that, but, like, now it's, like, more than that, but, like, that was a big thing for me because I was really nervous putting this podcast out, as y'all know, and, like, just thank you so much for supporting me, showing up for me. Thank you for being a part of my collective. I am opening up, like, episodes where I will be interviewing people from the audience. I've already had people reach out. If you reached out and I haven't gotten back to you yet, please understand that it is simply because I'm moving. Like I am going to be we're getting that schedule up and running as soon as I get settled into my new spot. But thank you so much for being interested for coming on. I will be getting back to you. I already have two interviews scheduled with people who are from the audience who want to come up. So it is coming down the pipeline. Thank you so much for tuning in. Over and out. Please have a wonderful rest of your days if you wherever you're listening to this from. Thank you.